The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
One of the things that we've been observing as we follow President Donald Trump's handling, as some are calling it, mishandling, not handling, as others would call it, of the coronavirus situation, is that both Trump's approval rating and his approval, or the number of people who believe he's specifically handling the pandemic well, are high. And that is a concern for a few different reasons. Donald Trump's job approval rating is up 5 points in the latest Gallup survey. It matches the high point of his entire presidency. And more than 50% believe that Donald Trump is handling coronavirus properly. This is driven not by Republicans. The Republican approval of Trump has remained very high in the low to mid 90s for a very long time. But Donald Trump has gained 8 points among independents and 6 points among Democrats. So for those simply saying this is because of Republicans, it's not. In fact, Trump's approval among Republicans has remained basically the same. So I have a couple theories, Pat, as to what may explain this. One is, in moments of crisis in general, people rally behind the president. It has nothing to do with what the president is actually doing. And we saw this after 9/11 with George W. Bush, although he squandered it with the Iraq War. There are other examples of it. The other thing may be that we have a country that has very densely populated areas and very sparsely populated areas. 35 or 40% of all the cases right now that are confirmed are in New York State. 35-40% of all the country. So you have large swaths of the country that have no or very few known cases. Now, remember, if they tested more, they might have more cases. It's conceivable that you have independents and Democrats in those parts of the country who look around, they don't hear about many cases. And so they say, well, Trump must be doing something right because it's not here yet, as the case may be. Those are my two ideas about what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with those theories, especially the first one. It does seem that like we rally behind the president in crisis times. And that was definitely true for George Bush in 9/11. But I think it's also because Trump has been able to use this to his advantage in some way. Like he's been able to say that he did the right thing by instituting a travel ban on China and Europe, and he did it early before anyone else was willing to. And even though we take a look at how he's handled this situation and we realize that he's bungling it, and we realize that the test scenario was absolutely horrible and we should have had those tests a lot earlier, and he should never have declined the WHO's tests. Other people just see it a different way, and he's able to sort of take advantage of that. I mean, the both sidesism, the polarization is continuing even through this crisis.
I wonder, what would it take for people to say he really bungled it? Because the reality is, as you're pointing out, there's no test case for how it would otherwise go, right? Like Trump can say, I banned travel from China early, and that saved a lot of lives. And of course, the truth is, if he had done it a week earlier, it would have saved more lives. But there's no way to verify that. So there's always this idea that it could have been worse if Trump didn't do it. And for a lot of people, maybe that is accurate to some degree. Hey, he banned travel from Europe. If he had waited one more week, it would have been much worse. So, hey, he did it a week earlier than he could have, and we're better off for it. Like, there's also an element of that. There's no other scenario to compare to.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think a few weeks ago, we thought that Trump's re-election chances were pretty strong, right? Because he seemed to match up well against Joe Biden, we thought. But then last week, I was starting to think, well, if the economy's in the toilet, incumbent presidents tend to not win re-election if that's the case. And, many elections are decided by the economy. So he may not be able to pull this thing off after all.
Right. Now
I'm wondering, well, we see his soaring approval numbers. We see Joe Biden basically hiding, or when he does give those rare press conferences and interviews, they don't seem to go very well. They're strange.
Yeah.
So maybe he actually will be able to win re-election despite the bad economic situation I think we'll be in November.
I increasingly am feeling, and again, this is one of those things where there's very little new polling coming out. It's really hard to know. It's just the feeling. My feeling is that almost no matter what, given the most likely outcomes, it's very unlikely that in October, the virus will still be steeply growing as it is now. It might take 8 weeks to reach the peak. It might take, 12. We don't know when the peak is going to be, but almost no matter what Trump does, it's looking like by the election time, it's not going to be as acutely bad as it is now. Like, watch me eat my words if it doesn't work out that way. But there's a very good chance of that. I think that this is all helping Trump getting reelected. I really do, because again, there's the deniability, the plausible deniability of it was better than if he had handled it even worse. At some point, we will get past it, and there will be people who will say, we got past it under Trump, so reelect him. Again, regardless of what the facts actually are.
Yeah, like Trump held up during a crisis scenario, and for the next 4 years, we probably won't experience anything as bad as we did with the coronavirus. So maybe
Right.
Trump is the guy for us going forward. That may very well be true. But also, as we go forward with this stuff, people are going to be more and more personally impacted by it, both by the virus itself. I'm sure many of us will know people who get the virus, maybe who even die from the crisis, the virus, and also there are going to be plenty of people who lose their jobs, lose their incomes if they haven't already. So I wonder if, because people are going to be personally impacted, if that will maybe change their minds, because I think Trump is able to get away with the corruption stuff, the Russia stuff, the Ukraine stuff, because it doesn't personally impact people.
Yeah.
Whereas this definitely does. So maybe that would change people's tunes.
When the bodies tragically start to stack up metaphorically, and if it's anything like what's been going on in Italy, literally to some degree, maybe this changes. And again, I have no desire for that to happen so that Trump gets hurt politically. I want to save every person that can be saved. But how does the rhetoric continue to work if that starts to become a daily headline? I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. One of the things we've been talking about is that 30 states are essentially doing nothing yet in terms of physical distancing and sheltering in place. Louisiana's governor actually did say no gatherings of more than 50 people. Now, here in Massachusetts, the rule is no gatherings of more than 10. 50 is certainly much more generous, but there is a pastor, Tony Spell, who runs Life Tabernacle Church in Baton Rouge. He had 1,000 people at his services and actually achieved that by bringing buses of people in from across 5 parishes. What is the point here? Is this to show that you are defying what those sissy liberals are doing? Is it to show that, I don't know, God is stronger than the virus or something crazy? Like, what is the point of this?
I think it's to show that God is stronger than the virus. And if we all come together and congregate in churches and we pray like people are used to doing, that maybe this will all go away. And the opposite appears to be true. I would imagine that people in his parish will probably be impacted by this. Many of them will probably get the disease because they continue to congregate. They continue to avoid the social distancing. And there are people saying that maybe this pastor should be criminally charged.
Yeah.
Because this does seem like reckless endangerment at the very least. I honestly think that maybe he would like that, because that would make him seem like a martyr. If he goes to jail during all of this, or after all this is done, I think many people would see that as like, wow, he was willing to put God above the law. And
he would
that's
totally
a noble thing to do.
self-martyr. Yeah, he would immediately say, I am bringing Jesus to people and they're putting me in prison. And in fact, the police chief of the Central Police Department in Baton Rouge says that the matter is under investigation. The pastor said to CNN that he believes the pandemic is politically motivated. And it's, of course, it's like, what is that even? Are you saying the virus is partisan? Is the coronavirus partisan? Because the idea of this, we know what he means, that the motions, the decisions being made by governors are politically motivated, that it's being used, to attack Donald Trump or whatever the case may be. But you sound very dumb when you say that he's conceding it's a pandemic, but he's saying it's a politically motivated pandemic.
Yeah, and how many people have to get the virus? How many people have to die before we all start taking this seriously? And this pastor's based out of Louisiana. Louisiana actually has experienced the largest spike of cases out of anywhere in the world. Of course, New York has the most total cases in the U.S. right now, but we may very well see Louisiana rival them. And we just can't do it alone. I mean, blue states they do seem to be taking it seriously. We have the stay-at-home orders, we have the social distancing measures, but if the red states don't do it as well, I mean, what good is it? Because, people travel all over the country. And if you're not practicing those measures elsewhere and then you come to the blue states, it's going to screw over everyone. And we're all going to be in a terrible place in a few months from now.
I have no clue where we're going to be in a few months, and I'm no longer pretending to know, because it's going to depend on what we do. And as we talked about on the show today, we won't keep talking about it. Trump wants to let her rip on April 12th. Let me tell you about some businesses that are actually doing a lot of hiring under the pandemic status quo. I don't think it'll surprise you what's going on. Of course, food and medicine are the things people continue to need. So supermarkets are doing a lot of hiring. Kroger, Albertsons doing a lot of hiring. Pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens, convenience and discount stores, Dollar General and 7-Eleven. And then, of course, the big retail companies, Amazon, Walmart, and maybe to some degree, Target doing a lot of hiring. Grocery delivery services. So, for example, Instacart says it's planning to hire, or they don't really hire because they're not employees, but they're planning to enroll 300,000 new workers to shop and deliver groceries, which is essentially doubling their workforce. Walmart's saying we're hiring 150,000, Amazon hiring 100,000. Papa John's and pizza delivery companies hiring thousands of people. Some of the meal kit companies are starting to hire more people. And then also transportation and logistics is hiring. So it's certainly bad for the economy overall. There are spots that are hiring. And I guess all we can really hope for, Pat, is that some of this hire. So you've got this big depression essentially in employment. The stimulus is going to do something for some people. We talked today, it looks like it's going to be $1,200 to everybody making under 75K, and then it'll trail off up until 99K. Then you're going to have, it looks like Trump letting it rip on April 12th, and some people are just going back to work, which seems like a terrible idea. And then you have some sectors that are going to be hiring more people. Hopefully this stuff is going to some degree mitigate what's going on. Of course, letting it rip on April 12th will also cause way more people to get infected and die. Seems to be a trade Trump is willing to make at this point.
Well, I mean, we need these people to be working, right? We need the CVSs to be open. We need the Walmarts to be open. These are essential roles after all. But the workers there are putting themselves at risk, so they should be definitely receiving some hazard pay. Not only are they putting themselves at risk, but they're also putting their own families at risk, and that's a risk that people at the top in those companies don't have to take because they can work from home. They can work behind a desk, and they don't have to interact with the public. So, you know, we're used to seeing people who work at grocery stores making $7, $8, $9 an hour. That should probably be doubled at a time like this. I mean, who knows if they can afford it right now, but they have to find a way. It seems like we're making other things affordable when they previously weren't under this crisis.
Grocery stores are making a ton of money, and I have successfully avoided going to the grocery store for close to a week now, and today I am definitely going to need to go and resupply on a bunch of stuff. And since I was last there, here in Massachusetts, I've been reading and anecdotally seeing that there are a whole bunch of new rules, one in, one out at a lot of places, tape on the floor, as we talked about, to keep people spaced out, but still very, very busy, and grocery stores doing well, despite the fact that people, you know, at a certain point, you would think the hoarding has to slow down because people have enough stuff. The thing is, you can very quickly have a second wave if it looks like this is going to last longer. So I don't know what to expect today when I go to the grocery store.
I think there will still be waves of hoarding because at first you had the preppers hoarding, and then you had people who were like concerned about this but aren't normally preppers hoarding, and then you had people who were like usually not even concerned about stuff like this. They're hoarding. So I think we're going to see more and more waves of that stuff. But I was also wondering, like, the benefits do seem to be pretty generous that Congress is going to be passing, the unemployment insurance and the universal payment of people making under $100,000. So I wonder if, like, the average person who got laid off, if they would be even willing to seek out employment. Like, wouldn't they? It's going to depend on the case, of course, and what your individual circumstances like. But I wonder if people would rather just stay home, stay safe, receive those checks for free, and instead of going out and trying to get a new job.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Let me tell you why. Number one, $1,200 one-time payment. Even if they make it monthly, that's $14,400 a year. That's, you know, a fraction of the average salary in the United States. Number two, you don't lose anything by working anyway. It's not one of these things where you lose the benefit. Again, it's based on prior income. It's going to be based on, it looks like it's going to be based on 2019 taxes if you filed them, and otherwise 2018 taxes. So there's no risk that if you start working in 2020, you lose out on any of it. So I don't know that it'll have that effect.
But what about coupled with the unemployment insurance? Like, if you're getting maybe $500 a week from the state because of unemployment, and then the federal government tacks on an extra $600 a week, maybe that would be worth it to you. Maybe you would make less money overall, but you wouldn't be putting yourself at risk. And it's going to depend on
you'd be making it while doing nothing, and potentially that. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. I don't know the answer. But I think The best, most people, I think, want to be working. They want to feel useful. They don't want to feel like that, like all activity has just stopped. I have friends who are working from home, but for example, they work in event planning. So like they have 15 minutes of work a day and a conference call or two, and they feel like they're doing nothing. And I think generally speaking, I think people want to be working, and these payments really are going to hopefully just be a temporary float for people. And again, I don't want to do it too soon, but I look forward to when people can get back to work. I think letting it rip on April 12th is too soon.
Yeah, I generally agree with the sentiment that people like to work and they want to be working. You may not like your job specifically, but people want to be productive, right? So I definitely get that, and I don't buy that as an argument against universal basic income or these other social welfare benefits. But in a time like this, when it's dangerous just to go outside, especially to public areas, maybe they would be able to say, I generally like working and I generally like being productive, but right now I got to hunker down and stay at home.
Well,
I think
remember,
definitely people will
that's
make
part
that
of what the
calculation.
government wants them to do. As Trump said, usually we pay people to work. Now we're paying people not to work. The staying home is actually what we want them to do in this particular case. So we'll see how it shakes out. I still don't even understand the mechanism through which you like sign up for the payment. That's not been made clear. For people who haven't filed 2019 tax returns, there's the idea that you would get it with filing. It would add $1,200 there. But a lot of people have filed already, and I actually don't. They need to announce that at some point. Like, do you go to a website and say, "Send me the money," or how does it all work?
What if you haven't done your taxes in a few years, right?
Right.
I mean, are those people going to get paid? I mean, I would imagine that's a significant portion of the country. What
Interesting.
are you going to do with them? Those are probably the people who need it the most right now. And are they going to be penalized because they didn't file their taxes? I think, what is it? You have to do it every few years or so, but not every year. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the rules either.
I've always filed
there's going to be a lot of
taxes.
people in that boat.
Yeah, for sure. We'll figure it out. We'll let you know when we know that. Tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, remember, it's the David Pakman Show chess tournament. I am the 2019 champion. There was only one game. I beat Pat once, and that made me the champion. But now we will have the 2020 chess championship tonight on leechess.org. Pat will be playing, and I think I'm being conservative when I say 50 people will play. We may have way more than that, and that would be very cool.
Yes, and I am indeed going to be playing. I'm going to take back what's rightfully mine. I think the 2019 championship game between you and me was rigged, and we're going to have a second shot at it. I'm going to be able to reclaim my title.
It's all happening tonight. If you don't want to play, but you want to watch, I'll be streaming my games starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you then or tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.